I'm welcoming everyone to Chapter 3, Individual Differences at Work. I was going to let you know that every so often I'll stop the presentation because there's some definitions that are mentioned here which may not be something that you are clear about. I know that I had to look for definitions that actually made sense. So I emailed them to myself, so I'm going to stop the presentation when I feel it's necessary and just click on a link to go there. Tonight's lecture is going to be on behavior, on individual differences at work. All different kinds of differences, cognitive, and yes, organizational theory and behavior.
Modules?
No, the module, we're not up to that. I didn't post module 3 yet. I've only posted those things that we did in class.
Oh, just link to the PowerPoint.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about, why isn't this moving on? Hold on, let me just see why this presentation is not behaving itself. All right, learning objectives. Identify the major individual variables that influence work behavior. Explain how organizations can leverage employee diversity. Differentiate between abilities and skills. Describe what an attitude is and identify its 3 components. Discuss the relationships between job satisfaction and performance. Identify the big 5 personality dimensions. Summarize the dimensions of emotional intelligence, which is super important.
Is this? Sorry.
Okay, so this slide is the learning objectives.
Oh, there we are. I have it.
Okay, so those are the learning
so you
objectives.
post it as we go. It's not all.
No,
Great.
so everything is. There's 2 ways I do it.
Yeah.
The first or second announcement of the year has a link to my Gmail drive, to the Google Drive, which has all of these chapters.
Yeah.
But what I do is at the end of each recording, that night I try to upload the lecture so you can review it with the PowerPoint slide that went along with it in the same place. So you don't have to go searching for links. Kind of lines up very nicely.
Thank you so much.
No, that just makes
That's
things
a
a lot
very
easier,
convenient,
and I
yeah.
think that's a very good taxonomy,
Yeah,
a good way to. No, it's okay. I want to make it easier for you. As I mentioned, this is going to be an online course in September, so this is kind of the proving ground. I'm trying to get all the kinks out of the course. So individual differences influence work behavior, right? We're a group of individuals. All of us have different upbringings, different attitudes, different orientations, different religious backgrounds. There could be people that have different kinds of sexual orientation, different kinds of upbringing, ethnicities. All these things create diversity at work, however, also creates different ways of looking at things, which may not be a bad thing. In other words, you can have a complex problem, but if you have a bunch of diverse people, even though you may not agree with their lifestyles, but they may come up with something novel. So therefore, there could be something, that could be gleaned from their collective knowledges. Remember, you have to divorce the knowledge that a person has from his or her lifestyle. You can have a certain lifestyle, but you can have a certain skill set, a certain level of knowledge that could be useful. Individual differences influence work behavior. Individual differences have a direct effect on behavior, perceptions, and interactions. These differences explain why some people embrace change and others fear it. You have people at work. I've had people at work. You mentioned change. There's a lump in their throat. Now, it's normal to be afraid of change. Why do you think, ladies, it's that change is something that's normal to be afraid of? Why is there a natural fear of change?
Because we're used to our
Okay, so we're used to routine, and this upsets the routine. What else? You're going to say something.
No, it's not comfortable.
Okay, so it's not. What else? There's something else I want to.
We're unsure of whether the change is good or bad.
Okay, and also we're unsure whether or not we could rise to the occasion.
Right.
We've seen ourselves change over time and master different skills and kind of grow, but there's always that fear that you're going to fall flat on your face. There's a fear of failure. F-O-F, fear of failure. Now, it's true. If you look at any multimillionaire, you'll know that they've definitely failed a zillion times before they succeeded. Every drug, that is approved by the FDA has, I don't know how many umpteen amount of drugs that did not pass the clinical trial stage. So people are afraid of failure. Virtually no area of an organization is unaffected by individual differences. So individual differences is a pervasive concept. It's something it's something that is there, palpable, and you just got to do what you got to do and deal with it. All right, so more on the individual differences in the workplace. To understand individual differences, observe and recognize the differences. You have to know, you have to be aware that they exist. Study relationships amongst variables that influence individual behavior, causes and effects. And this is really where emotional intelligence will really come in later on. It's very important, especially when you start off as a new manager. And I learned this the hard way. Observe, take in everything, take in the lay of the land. As new managers, many times we're confronted with this, let's go, boots to the ground, let's hit the ground like the paratroopers, like the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles. They hit the ground, as the parachute is still behind them, they're cutting away their parachute, they're getting their equipment. Sometimes you have to,
Naomi
one second.
said she didn't get the link for Zoom.
Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to relink it. So as I was saying, we're going to talk about the individual differences with vis-a-vis observations and understanding people's behaviors when we speak about emotional intelligence. It's super important that when you take over a position in management, that you get advanced intelligence from people that are there before, but more importantly, form your own opinions, formulate your own opinions and feelings about situations. Don't just rely on what people tell you. Come to some kind of conclusion yourself, and it's very, very important to kind of spy out the land, see who's your friend, see who's your enemy, see who is there to help you, see who's there not to help you. And if you're astute and you're smart, you'll be able to figure it out in a matter of days what the lay of the land is. Once you understand the lay of the land and you understand how things work, you'll be able to understand what behaviors are good for productivity, what things are counterproductive, and basically who you need to win over to your camp. And if necessary, hi, how are you? I'm so sorry that I posted a link to the wrong section. So I'm glad you're in now. Just do me a favor, there's a lot of background noise. If you could put yourself on mute, and when you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, so now we're finished with this slide. Just to get everybody back on track, we're up to slide number 3. Sorry, slide number 4. Okay, now let's talk about differences, individual differences. So we have diversity, different kinds of people from different backgrounds, abilities and skills, or disabilities. Hi, how are you? How you doing? Just mute yourself, and then if you have any questions, just unmute and ask, okay? We're up to slide number 5. Exhibit 3.1. Individual differences affect workplace. So we have abilities and skills, attitudes, personality, emotions. Emotions are very hard because I know this is going to sound a little bit like touchy-feely and all kind of fuzzy, but can you just mute yourself? I hear a lot of background noise. Thank you. A lot of times we don't know why we feel the way we do. Does anybody ever feel a sense of dread? Just like that. It comes and goes once in a while. Because you're afraid of something. I know, like this morning, I could not explain it. I did not sleep well, and I had a couple of unpleasant dreams. We all have that. And tossing and turning from 4:30 to 6:30, I just felt uneasy. I did not know why. I don't know why I felt that way. I felt better later on in the day. So people get alarmed. They don't know why they feel the way they do. Sometimes they know why they feel the way they do, but they can't express themselves, either because they lack the vocabulary or they just don't know how to emote and explain themselves. So emotions are a very difficult thing because we all have them. And you really need to be very experienced to understand people's emotions. You also have to know, I'll give you an example. There are sometimes when you're upset about something, you exacerbate, you make the situation worse by adding fuel to the fire. You add a little bit of sarcasm, or you're trying to be cutesy and funny, but the person takes it the wrong way. You have to be very careful. You really have to know the other person well before you engage with them. Well, like myself, I know this for myself. I have this interesting humor. It puts people off. Some people don't get it if they're very, I don't do well with people that are uptight. The uptight kind of down to business kind of person, I don't get along. I have that playful character. But if I'm up against somebody like that, I know it. I don't wait till I get myself into trouble. I see it, and then I adjust accordingly. So even though I have a certain personality, I will suppress that personality when necessary, but not permanently. You can't suppress yourself. I'm talking about the good parts of yourself. I'm not talking about not having a filter. You can't suppress yourself because that you become miserable. If you try to assume a role or a personality that you are not, it'll make you miserable. I'm not by nature a tough person. I can be when I need to. So when people force me to be tough with them, I get upset at them and I tell them, I'm mad at you because you forced me to engage in a behavior or in a way that I don't usually engage. You've asked me to be something that I'm not, and I'm upset at you for taking me out of my comfort zone. Also, perceptions. Perceptions are very powerful because perceptions are our reality. We come to our reality, or we have a sense of reality or lack thereof, basically based on our perceptions. It's, perception is our reality. Any questions? All right, so what diversity is and is not. Diversity is not a synonym for equal employment opportunity. I know we think diversity, male, female, it's not. It's not another word for affirmative action. It's the vast array of physical and cultural differences. In other words, yes, it could touch on affirmative action because people have cultural differences and that may somehow be tangentially related to, but it's not the main aspect of it. There's cultural differences that constitute the spectrum of human differences. We all come from different cultures. We could be within the same religion, right? A person could be Jewish, a person could be Catholic, but from different cultures. A person could be Muslim from different cultures. A Muslim from Kenya is going to be different than a Muslim in Saudi Arabia. A Muslim in Saudi Arabia is going to be different than somebody in Dearborn, Michigan, an Americanized Muslim. Totally different cultures. They may share a common religion. Maybe they pray the same way. They engage in studying the Quran the same way, but they're different people because they come from different parts of the world and different cultures. A couple of population trends. The workforce is becoming more diverse. Minorities will become the majority of the U.S. population by 2060. Isn't that interesting? The minority will become the majority. I know it sounds like a tongue twister. White non-Hispanics will be 50% of the population. The reason for that is Hispanics tend to have larger families. Now that may change over time because American Americans tend to have smaller families, 2 kids. In our Orthodox world, the average families are pretty large. I'm not going to take a poll here, but I'm assuming no one here is an only child. Is that a correct assumption? Is anybody an only child out there in the land of Zoom? Okay, I take that as I'm the only child.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, you are? Naomi? Okay, so
You're an only child?
I'm an only child, so okay,
Wow.
we're twins in this respect. But in the Latino background or Latino culture has a lot of kids. They have large families. They're very family oriented. They're into helping each other. It's a very, very close-knit society. So because of that, you have, by 2060, 50% of the population will be Hispanic, white non-Hispanic. I'm sorry, my mistake. 50%, will be white non-Hispanic, but Hispanics will be 29%. I kind of conflated that, which is a tremendous portion, okay? African Americans will be 18% and Asian Americans will be 9.3%. So wow, that's pretty cool, and it's going to get larger and larger and larger and larger. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Asian Americans will be 9.3% of the population. Why so little? Well, I mean, like the Chinese, their culture, they for many years they were forced to have only 1 kid.
Right.
So that's
Now it's 2 kids.
Well, the math, it's interesting, the way that they have the math set up here, 50%.
They only make up 5% right now, I think.
What do they have there? So let me just do all the math over here. This is more than 100%, I think.
And African Americans.
No, it's 79,
maybe
79, 89. Yeah, it's more than 100%, the way they have it here. I don't know how this slide's a little bit off mathematically, but these are the total percentages of different groups out there. I have to write to the author here. There's something off about the numbers here, I think. I've seen different numbers projected. But in any case, the Hispanic or Latino will definitely be a larger minority presence than African Americans. And for many, many decades, African Americans made up the largest minority segment of the society that we're in. Okay, diversity factors, primary dimensions, stable, such as age, ethnicity, race. The difference between ethnicity and race, anybody want to take a hack at that? What is a race? What is a race?
Or is this, a race is,
Like what?
Purely genetic. It's your genetic.
It's
Yeah.
physical,
Yeah.
right? You will probably not find a curly red-headed Chinese person
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, unless their parents are mixed marriage, right? You will. Anybody who's Chinese that I ever met has straight black hair. I mean, they could style it differently, dye it, but I'm talking about standard, okay? And even with the Oriental race, so to speak, there are differences. Asian have differences. An American Samoan, well, actually that's more of an Indian, but a Japanese person will look different than a Filipino, will look different than somebody from Korea. There are differences in that. But again, that's a racial difference, that's physical. You have another aspect, that is ethnicity, their background, their culture, etc. Gender, you know what that is, physical attributes, somebody who's tall, skinny, fat, short, sexual or affectional orientation. Simply put, gay versus straight, lesbian, homosexual, gay, whatever it is, that whole thing. Affectional, I guess it's a person's choice of whom they love. All right, but without getting into that, I'm not interested in getting into full-blown discussion about that. But just for the purposes of this class, it's there. Secondary dimensions, which are changeable, are education background. You can't change your age, right? You can't change your gender, your sexual orientation, no. Right? Your physical attributes, no. I mean, unless you're fat and you get skinny. But if you're tall, you're not going to get taller unless you grow naturally. If you're short, they're not going to put you on the rack like they did in medieval times. Exactly. Just pull you. So in the secondary dimensions, those are changeable, like your education background. You could change your educational background. You get an opportunity, you get a scholarship. Your marital status, definitely. Single to married, married to back to single. Religious beliefs, yes. People convert from religions. Health, yes, person's health changes, and work experience can change as well. Everybody out there, please stop me if you have a question or you don't understand something. That's why I'm here. Benefits of diversity. As I mentioned earlier in this lecture, enhanced decision quality, better connection with customers, more creative innovation, higher financial performance. So, a couple of different generations here. We're not going to get into the exact years, what year from what year, although I can tell you the baby boomers are from 1946 to 1964, I believe. They're the largest generation. So we have generational diversity. We got baby boomers. Generation X are people in their 30s and 40s. I'm 47, so I'm definitely Generation X. I was born in 1973. I'm well within that Generation X. And Generation Y or millennials are 20s and younger. I'm assuming all of you are Gen Ys in that.
No, we're Gen Z.
Well, it says here Gen Y is 20s and younger. Maybe Gen Z is could be something in between. Again, like I said, this is not a marketing class. I'm not going to get into the fine minutia. But according to the slide, Gen Y or millennials are 20s and younger. Could be the millennials and Z are interchangeable. Disability diversity, okay, so people have disabilities. I think we are definitely, as a society, very kind to our disabled. With the ADA, we have laws that require us to have certain things. Braille in public places, clear signage that people can't see so well. You have the TTTY phones for people that can't hear. So disability diversity, make facilities accessible, restructure jobs to make them more doable for people with disabilities, modify work schedules, and job reassignments for jobs that are appropriate for people with those disabilities. Obviously, somebody who can't walk is not going to, let's say, God forbid, you have this at work, a person gets into a car accident and become a cripple, can't walk anymore. So their old job required them to be in the warehouse. Perhaps now he can be moved to more of a desk job where he can use a computer and do purchasing. That would be an example of disability, diversity, and being sensitive to that. Gender, race, racial, age, and ethnicity diversity will bring differences in values, absolutely. Work ethics, behavioral norms. There's also miscommunication. There's also a level of insensitivity we all have. Ignorance is the worst. I firmly believe that 99% of racism, and I've looked at this 100, is from sheer ignorance. If people were to only understand what was going on and how, as a Jew, I can kind of bring a little tidbit. I forgot who it was. There was somebody in the House of Commons. It was maybe in the early 1900s. It was a Jewish man. And let's just say this, England was very anti-Semitic then. It's not as Jew-friendly as it should be now, but it is better. They were making all kinds of negative comments, and he lashed out at them. And we're talking about, and this came from their ignorance. He said, "Do you understand that the ancient Jews brought civilization to the world? While your ancestors were drawing pictures of stuff on caves in France, your Neanderthal ancestors, we had society, we had laws, we had cities, armies, we were modernized." So, that comes from ignorance. People don't understand. People don't appreciate other people's cultures. Now, I think it's important to be aware of other people's cultures. I'm not advocating that you should become immersed in them and read up on it, but just to be aware enough that you could be respectful to them at work. Also, hostility, let's go back to the slide. Also, hostility may become major concerns as a result of that ignorance. Stamping out ignorance, I think, is a very, very important thing. Abilities and skills. Ability is a person's talent to perform a mental or physical task, generally stable over time. Skill is a learned talent acquired in order to perform a task. You can learn a skill, right? You have a penchant for languages, you're good at languages, so you can learn languages. There's language skills. You're good at, for example, to be good at language, I think you'd be excellent at understanding roots of words and origins of words, and knowing that words, have a certain similarity from different languages. I also see a connection of sorts between language ability and music. I see some sort of nexus between that. And you can learn music. You have a talent. You can have a talent, an innate talent, and that talent is improved over time. And you can become a fantastic musician and improve your skill. Mental ability, verbal fluency, and comprehension. Some people are better and more erudite. Do me a favor, who?
Yeah, I'm not texting. I just
Some people, okay, no problem. Some people have better fluency, better comprehension, inductive and deductive reasoning. I'm going to take a little bit of a break here for a second and go through the two. I actually found some interesting stuff on that. All right, somebody has to redesign Zoom to be able to just move this monstrosity out of the way here. It's a pain in the neck. That's what I don't like about, all right, inductive reasoning. Go to this. All right, everyone out there sees that. Wow, somebody didn't pay the internet bill. All right, inductive reasoning is an approach to logical thinking that involves making generalizations based on specific details. Inductive reasoning is important for critical thinking skills that many employers look for in employees. Let's look for some examples here. A teacher notices that his students learned more when hands-on activities were incorporated into lessons, and then decides to regularly include a hands-on component in his future lessons. Notice he's making an assumption. It worked here, so it's probably going to work everywhere else. Okay? Here, let's go to a different one. A recruiter conducts a study of recent hires who have achieved success and stayed on with the organization. She finds that they graduated from 3 local colleges, so she decides to focus recruiting efforts on those schools. Police do this as well. They'll notice a crime spree from 3 different neighborhoods. So then what will happen is the police chief will deploy more troops, or I won't say troops, more police officers to those areas. Or if you have attacks, insurgents that attack from 3 different villages, obviously the military force there will deploy more forces there to deal with that, and that will be inductive reasoning. And deductive reasoning, let's go to that. Now, in deductive reasoning, you start with a generalization or theory and then test it by applying it to specific incidents. For example, in grade school, our teachers may have taught the difference to us as going from big to small when using deductive reasoning, and going from small to big when using inductive reasoning. Right? So that's that particular slide. I hope that was helpful. I found it to be very helpful. Okay, associative memory, associate, like word association, that kind of thing, and spatial orientations, right? Those are all different abilities and skills that people have. And you could test. There's tacit knowledge. And tacit knowledge is very difficult to give over. It's kind of hard.
What does it mean, like?
It's a skill it's something that is difficult for me to give over, like language, or nuances. Like I was playing guitar with my daughter last night,
Yeah.
and I let go of this fast riff, like a sweep. I played like 15 or 20 notes, like in seconds, and she's like, "How'd you do that?" I have no idea.
You just
I can't.
gotta.
I just got it,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like it's just something very, very difficult to give over to someone. I actually have a good definition for this. I'll just go back to it. When I was preparing tonight's lecture, I knew that people would, want a good definition for this, because these are not common terms.
Right.
You don't go to, you don't have sentences, oh, I have tacit learning. So tacit knowledge is knowledge that's difficult to write down, visualize, or transfer from one person to another. Because it's feel. And surgery would definitely be an example of that, because it's all feel. Surgeons are big into feel and having years and years experience. And this is work-related practical know-how acquired through observation and experience. Observation is key. Why do you think YouTube is so successful? Because it has all this do-it-yourself watch how to do it. It's very successful because many people learn because they're visual learners. How many of you learn well when you could see something? Right? I thrive on visual learning. I need to see it. I need to draw out a diagram. Sometimes I'm learning something complicated, right? I need to draw it out so that I can understand it. All right, abilities and skills. Sternberg believes that leaders and managers with practical intelligence tend to capitalize on their own strengths and overcome their own weaknesses, realize that they are not good at everything. Simon Sinek talks about this in Good Leadership.
We watched a lot of these
in business
policy.
Right, that
Yeah.
you need to be able to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is something that's okay. I think it's tremendous as a leader that you show vulnerability. You know why? Because it takes away from your mystique, and no one feels inhibited from asking questions to you, and nobody feels intimidated by you. A leader should not intimidate his or her followers. He should energize, or she should energize them. Overcome negative expectations set by others around them. Learn from their positive and negative experiences, and have can-do attitudes, which I think is very, very important. Attitudes are determinants of behavior because they are linked to perception, personality, feelings, and your motivation. An attitude is a mental state of readiness. I like that. Learned and optimized through experience. So you kind of learn attitudes. There's, you've got an attitude. That attitude came from somewhere. Came from the home. Maybe your parents portrayed something to you, and as a result of that portrayal, you have a certain attitude towards that. It doesn't have to be bad. We sometimes tend to associate the word attitude. Yeah, he has attitude. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So let's move on. So attitudes are learned, defines one's predispositions, are the emotional basis of interpersonal relations, and identifications with others, are closely linked to personality, are subject to change. Components of attitudes: cognition, a person's perceptions, opinions, and beliefs. Affect, A-F-F-E-C-T, emotional components of attitudes, learned from parents, teachers, and peers. This is why it's so important to get as much positive upbringing and good vibes as a child, because that really, really goes with you. Very, very long distance. Behavior, the tendency to act in a certain way towards someone or something. Sometimes you have cognitive dissonance. In marketing, it means, for example, if I buy something and then all of a sudden I'm not sure if I like it or not, so I have to go around and say, hey, do you like this? Do you like this? How many of you buy something, an article of clothing or something, and then you have to go and ask 15 people, hey, do you like it? Do you not like it? I mean, that's just something that's normal. We all tend
I
to,
feel like when I do that, I regret the purchase. Like if I really like something, I would.
yeah. But, so here, it creates discomfort with individuals attempt to reduce or eliminate. That's why in my example, they're always asking for affirmation. That's how you reduce or eliminate those negative, gnawing feelings. Example, knowing that smoking is bad for your health, but continuing to smoke. That's a real example of cognitive dissonance at the highest order. I think the continuing to smoke is because it's comfortable to smoke. Inertia is very comforting and comfortable. Yes, it makes no sense to have inertia, because inertia is just sitting around and doing nothing is not good, but people get comfortable. People like the predictable. And this example, yeah, I've been smoking for years. Why stop now?
Yeah.
You know it's not good for you. Yeah, you know it's not good for you, but, I'm going to do it anyway. Exhibit 3.2, the three components of attitudes, cognition, effect, and behavior. So you have stimuli, work environment factors, manager style, technology, noise, the things that kind of take you away from your goals, peers, reward system, which is very important, compensation plan, which is a part of that reward system, and career opportunities, which is also somewhat a part of that reward system. You need to know as an employee that you have career opportunities within that organization. If there is no clear career ladder, if there is no clear trajectory that, a person comes in, he or she should want to get past the mailroom.
Right.
Unless you don't care and you're not motivated. You're in the mailroom, you're thinking to yourself in 15 years, I'm going to go from the mailroom.
Right.
I'm going to be in the boardroom, not in the mailroom.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a department head or assistant vice president or something like that. Then you have cognition, beliefs, and values. My supervisor is unfair or fair. Having a fair supervisor is important to us. Affect, AFFECT, feelings and emotions. I don't like my supervisor. And that's, by the way, one of the main reasons that people leave work. They don't leave the job, they leave the supervisor. Even if the job is not glorious, I'm like, okay, it's passable. But if you have a negative or a nasty coworker or a bad boss, it pushes you over the edge. Those are the reasons why people quit. Less people quit because of the type of job it is. More people will quit because of whom they have to work for and with. And behavior, intended behavior. As a result of me not liking my supervisor in the previous example, now I've submitted my intended behavior is I've submitted a formal request for transfer. Okay. Attitudes and job satisfaction. Job satisfaction is an attitude towards a job that results from a perception of the job and the fit between the worker and the organization. Attitudes and job satisfaction, they're governed by factors that have been associated with job satisfaction, which include pay, the work itself. Obviously, you want to do satisfying work. Even if I paid you a lot of money, to shovel all the stuff in a zoo, right? I gave you a big salary. I don't think anybody here would want to do it. I know, I would do it for $1 million. I'll go to the monkey cage. No, you won't.
For $1 million, maybe, but
I don't know. I'd be
Once.
honest with you. I don't know if you could do it every day.
not every day. No.
Right.
Just one time for $1 million.
Yeah. One time is one time. It becomes your daily job. It's kind of hard. So again, pay, the work itself, promotion opportunities, supervision, coworkers, work conditions, and of course, job security, which is super important. People will be willing to take a pay cut of sorts, but knowing that there's more job security in one position or one organization than the other. Personality, a relatively stable set of feelings and behaviors that have been significantly formed by genetic and environmental factors. So personality definitely carries over quite strongly. I mean, I see this in my own family. I'll see, let's say my grandson, he'll have certain personality traits that I picked up in my daughter, or in my father, or in myself. These things are definitely genetic. They're also based on environmental factors. The relationship between behavior and personality is complex. That's why you need professionals who are trained in this arena and know how to traverse and kind of get things done. So personality, principles of personality generally accepted as true. Personality has observable, measurable patterns. Personality has superficial aspects such as attitudes towards being a team leader. There's a deeper core such as sentiment about having a strong work ethic, and personality involves both common and unique characteristics. Following World War II, many researchers believed that personality testing could predict job performance. It's not always true. Not always true.
Right.
Okay?
I mean, there's only like 16 personalities that most of these tests have, so you can't fit people into like billions of people into like 16 boxes.
Right.
Kind of-
Right, and there's also less gradation between the two. It's not a perfect science. People are quite complicated. All right, so the validity of such tests is questionable. There was fear that such tests discriminated against minorities. Many companies today still use selection, career planning, training, and team assignment decisions, and a test called the Myers-Briggs Inventory, which is also very popular.
What's your Myers-Briggs?
I have,
Should I guess?
yeah, go for it.
ESTJ.
All right, which is,
What?
continue.
Extrovert,
Yeah.
sensory versus intuitive.
How'd you know that? That's
Yes, thinker versus feeler.
Yeah.
And judger versus perceiver. What's your,
Yeah,
is that it? Am I right?
pretty much, yeah. Where'd you learn that? Psychology?
No, I don't
Are
know.
you an ESTP or ESTJ?
Here we are.
ESTJ.
This is
yes.
it.
You're very organized.
Huh?
I said, Jay, you're very organized.
Yeah. I got this. I tell you, I prepared for class. It's important to come prepared.
Yeah.
Because if you don't come
We know
prepared.
the difference as students.
Definitely. And you know what? The instructor also knows when they're not prepared. They come out
Yes.
feeling kind of like, you know. It's okay not to know everything, but this is something that's so it's really cool. These are some of the personality traits that are very, very important to us humans. Okay. Let's move on. Here they are. Some of the big fives: extrovert, emotional stability, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experience. And by the way, if you recently took Principles of Management, these slides should be very, very familiar to you. A lot of these slides appeared in
Right.
some form in Principles of Management. Here it's appearing more pointed towards the behavioral aspects of work, also in greater detail than in Principles of Management. But nonetheless, it's there. So that's why the prerequisite for this course is Principles of Management.
Right.
So the big five personality dimensions: no trait or group of traits predicts how well someone will perform on a project or a job. Additional selection tools, structured interviews, cognitive ability tests, work performance tests all play a key factor. Here's, I'm going to take the slide, I'm going to go up here because the slide's a little bit too, I feel like a blogger here, going up over here. So a couple of dimensions, the big five: high extroversion. Associated with these work behaviors, job performance of manager and salesperson's training proficiency. The implications for the manager will be use personality assessment to identify extroverted individuals for jobs requiring large amounts of social interaction. So if you want to be that Uber salesperson, you can't be an introvert. Let's look at high agreeableness, peer ratings of team members, interpersonal skills. Now there's a danger with just trying to be very agreeable and trying to get people to like you, because then you're running for office and not necessarily getting the job done. Managers try to include on teams individuals who are agreeable because they help the team to function more smoothly by using their good interpersonal skills to keep communication channels open and to